The FBI is helping investigate the horrific tragedy that unfolded at Houston's Astroworld Music Festival over the weekend, where 8 people died and dozens of others were injured. Rapper Travis Scott is facing multiple lawsuits amid growing questions over safety and security protocols. And now, organizers for the Day in Vegas Music Festival have announced that Scott will no longer be performing at the upcoming event there. Lilia Luciano is in Houston with the latest on this tragedy and joins us now. Lilia, thanks for joining us. Did the organizers of Astroworld have any safety protocols in place in case chaos broke out, especially since, this is really not the first time that this sort of thing has happened at a Travis Scott concert before? One of the things that he's sort of known for is kind of whipping the crowd up. So were they prepared for that?
That's right, Anne-Marie. There was a safety plan. There's a document that's 56 pages long that details a bunch of different scenarios ranging from, active shooter to natural disasters to other catastrophes. It does detail traumatic injuries leading to death. There's a series of different scenarios, but nothing like a crowd surge. I mean, nothing like what we saw of, something like 50,000 people rushing and crushing each other to get closer to the stage. And you're right. I mean, it's something that should have been expected. We know from the chief of police that he mentioned yesterday that he met with Travis Scott to warn him about his security concerns. He says, we're living in a time that's very difficult. He said in his statement that he hasn't witnessed a time like this in 31 years, mentioned the pandemic, mentioned political divisions and things like that, and to be mindful of the messaging that his team puts out on social media. But it doesn't seem like there was anything specific to something like a crowd surge. There were evacuation plans. Officials were empowered to shut down the power. There were scripts for messages that would be sent out to the audience to stop the event. But the questions in most of the lawsuits are asking those questions about what of that was implemented, what more could have been done. And as you said, I mean, this is something that they should have expected because 2 years ago, it wasn't as much madness as we saw, but certainly Travis Scott's concerts are known to have that kind of behavior and disturbance from people who get very excited to see him, and he has a history and has been charged and has pled guilty to inciting disorderly behavior.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. So you brought up something, the lawsuits. Several of them have been filed against Travis Scott and others responsible for putting on this musical event. Has he responded at all to the lawsuits, and what do we know about them?
We haven't heard him directly respond to the lawsuits. There are so many lawsuits, it's hard to keep count, quite honestly. Yesterday, we heard from one of the families of one of the deceased, of Axel Acosta's father and brother, gave a small press conference with their attorney, who's also representing another 35 plaintiffs, people who were injured, people who were affected in different ways. And what they're looking at is, what was done, how Travis Scott could be held liable or responsible for this, as well as the concert organizers. Live Nation has put out statements saying they're cooperating with police, and of course attorneys for all of these lawsuits are going to be, what they're doing is they're sending messages to all of the defendants and saying you have to retain the evidence, you have to protect the evidence. They're looking at everything ranging from text messages sent to evidence here at the site where this event happened. But I don't believe at this point Travis Scott has issued any statements concerning specifically the lawsuits. He has said that he will cover the funeral expenses for the victims, the 8 people who died, and is also partnering with a company that provides mental health services to people who were traumatized or people who need that kind of free therapy.
So, Lilia, you mentioned that Houston's police chief met with the rapper before the concert. I know he was one of the organizers, but he's also sort of just one of the performers. I would think there would be other people to meet, perhaps people involved in security. But do we know what the chief said he discussed with Travis Scott?
He did say that he met with Scott and with his chief of security, or the person leading his security team, and that what he expressed is, look, I expect that this is concerning. And he specifically addressed a difficult time and talked about the pandemic and talked about, divisions and things like that. We know from what we've witnessed post-pandemic, look at what's happening with the airlines. I think he must have taken all of that into account. And of course, the previous Astroworld festivals, which have had incidents like people just breaching through security checkpoints and things like that. But Scott's chief of security was there, according to the statement put out from the Houston police chief.
Lilia, thank you so much.